Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dakota Hersey and I am a senior portrait and wedding photographer in Wilmington, North Carolina. Today I'm going to switch it up a little bit where I'm normally talking to my seniors and couples and I'm going to talk to my fellow photographers. When I first got into photography, I was constantly searching for what types of equipment my favorite photographers were using and what they were using it for. It can be a little overwhelming when you start looking at all of the cameras and lenses and then the price points of all of those things and wondering how will you ever get there. But it's totally possible and it doesn't all have to happen at once. We can get more into that later, but when you are a wedding photographer and you're looking to purchase different types of equipment to do the job, it's really about finding the pieces that are going to work with you and the way that you shoot, and then also prioritizing what you need the most at the time. So I did think that it would be helpful if I went through all of the things that I use to shoot a wedding day. And if you have any specific questions about any of these things or want to talk more about them, then I am an open book. Okay, first up, cameras. So I mostly shoot with my Canon Mark III. We'll see if this goes into focus. Yep, this is my baby. It's my favorite camera. I'm so sad to know that Canon is not manufacturing these anymore, but you can still get them in a couple of places, and it's going to be really hard for me to one day give it up, but for now, this is what I use for the majority of my wedding day. I'll be honest with you, I'm not super technical when it comes to camera technology, but I love it. I think it's the perfect camera. It has a ton of focal points, and yeah, I don't have too much to say about why I love it other than it's the one that works the best for me and the one that I have grown most accustomed to. My second camera I am actually using to film this, so I will figure out a way to incorporate so that way you can actually see what it looks like, but it is the Canon EOS R. I just purchased this at the end of last year because I knew I wanted to get a second camera, especially since these are not being made by Canon anymore. I did a ton of research into the Mark IV and then also the new mirrorless line coming out by Canon. And since the future is going all digital, I decided to jump in on the Canon EOS R boat. My brother Weston did actually use the EOS R to film a wedding with me last year, and so I have had my hands on it before I actually decided to buy it. He loved it, and if he loved it for video, then I figured it would also be able to help with all of the things that I'm doing on YouTube. I'll be honest, it took me a really long time to get adjusted to it and to really like it, especially because it is so different from the Mark III, or at least I think that it is. I had to make some custom adjustments to the white balance because I do typically shoot in Kelvin, and it does handle light a little differently, especially when you're looking at the back of the screen. So once I figured out those things and just took the time to practice with it, I now officially love it. Having the touchscreen on the back is super helpful, and you're actually able to flip the screen around so that way, like right now, I can see myself. If I'm shooting from up really high, I can flip it out and be able to hold the camera up and still be able to see what's on the screen. So that really comes in handy when I'm doing things like details, or if I'm trying to shoot at a reception and I just need to hold it up and be able to see above all the people, especially since I'm kind of short. The low light capabilities on it are amazing. I love it for receptions. That's the first place that I started integrating it into, because I can actually see what I'm doing when people are dancing and the room is really dark, or during sparkler exits when there's not a ton of light outside to see what you're doing. I am really excited about using it more because it is super simple for people who are non-photographers to use it. Because it is digital, you're able to see exactly what the photo is going to look like, whether you're looking through the viewfinder or on the back of the screen. Meaning that if I hand it off to somebody who doesn't necessarily know their way around a camera, they're still going to be able to know if the photo looks right or not. Because I personally am very particular when it comes to photos of myself or photos in general. I still do all of the settings and everything before I hand it to them, but they'll be able to look at the screen and know whether it looks right or not. Also, the back of the screen allows you to focus just by tapping, and so that just makes everything easier, especially since I have everything set up with the back button focus, but the EOS R, I just tell them to tap and go. All right, so on to lenses. This is by far my favorite lens, my Canon 50 1.2. It's my baby. It barely ever comes off of my camera. It's the lens that I've had the longest amount of time, so I feel super comfortable with it, and it is perfect for portraits that allow you to be close to your subject, but also not feel like you're all up in their bubble. I use this constantly throughout the day, almost every single part of the day, but mainly for portraits. My next lens is my 35mm 1.4, which I am also using to film this video, so I will show it to you in just one moment. But this was surprisingly one of the last lenses that I added to my collection. But the day that I bought it, I was so glad that I had it because I would not have been able to do the wedding without it. It's super helpful in the morning when you have really tight spaces in bridal suites, or you're trying to make an area that isn't a bridal suite look like one. It's super helpful for flat lay so that way you can see everything that you have without having to get up super high. And especially for any wide shots needed throughout the day, whether that is for big family photos, wide shots of the ceremony, or if you just want to get like a really epic shot of the bride and groom. I also use this lens almost exclusively for my reception coverage because it allows me to get in close on the dance floor with people, get a ton of people in the shot, and then also not have people's heads as they're like bobbing back and forth get in the way of the photo. It has super fast and accurate focus, which also helps a ton too. Even though I have a ton of photographer friends that use this just like the same way that I use my 50 for all of their photos, and then I have some friends that only pull it out when, you know, they have those moments that they need it, but it is definitely one of those lenses that when you need it, you need it. So highly, highly recommend. Can't do a wedding day without it. Okay, so next up is my 85mm 1.4. This is one of my newest lenses added to the collection, and I rented it one time because I had heard such good reviews about it. I loved the photos that it created, and I actually ended up letting my second shooter use it at the wedding to get the tight crop of the same image that I was getting as they were standing right next to me, and then also get some really fun candid photos without having to be super close. But I will be honest with you, it took me a really long time to figure it out and to really challenge myself to use it more. I love being up close with my couples, and this focal length requires you to be at a different angle to get the exact shot that you want. But I will say that once I learned it, I absolutely loved it. This is the main lens that I use when I want to have that wow factor and really have my couple or my subjects pop off of the background. I also love it because it handles bright light really, really well without giving me a ton of haze. I've really challenged myself to pull it out of my bag more and more, and every single time I do it, I'm so excited because I always create something that I love and am super proud of. You do just have to have a lot of space or are ready to get really creative if you are going to use this lens, but highly, highly recommend. And then for the last of the lenses that I mainly use on the wedding day, this is a 100mm 2.8. It is a macro lens, so it's used for all of my super tiny details throughout the day. I did try to get by without this in the very beginning of shooting weddings and was trying to use my other lenses for shooting things like rings, but this is the king if you want to have really, really beautiful detail shots. It's really good for rings so that way you can see all of the details of the diamond, all of your jewelry, anything that's small that you're shooting at the beginning of the day when you're doing your wedding day details. It's really good for letting those smaller items really stand alone and pop off of the page. Sometimes my second shooter will use this during the ceremony because you are able to get pretty far because it's 100mm, but for the most part I use it just for wedding details. So next are my flashes. These are my 3 600 EXRT Canon flashes. I went with these because I want all of my equipment to stay within Canon just because it makes things easier to get things serviced, and then also because as soon as you set these up, they automatically sync as soon as you turn them on a wedding day. So this means that every time I get to a reception, all I have to do is set them up on the stands, turn them on, and then we're good to go. For these two that live off of the camera, I keep them on a stand that just looks like this. It's super simple. I do have the thing that allows them, if it'll focus, the thing that allows them to clip in and lock in. And then I just set these up in a corner so that way they don't get knocked over. And then this is the flash that lives on my camera. I did buy this Magmod sphere recently that is magnetic, and it just helps with light diffusion and making sure that the space is filled with more light. but I haven't used it a ton, so the jury is still out on if I like it, if I recommend it, so stay tuned. Some other miscellaneous things that I use on wedding days are my styling kit, which I just started putting together. This includes things like my styling mats. Both of these have a color on both sides. These provide a really clean, flat surface for making sure that I have somewhere to lay out the details if I don't necessarily want to use a bridesmaid's dress, or if I want to use something that's different and keep things really cohesive. I have started adding in other fabrics and ribbons and things like that to my styling kit, just in case we need something else to add some texture and color to jazz up the details that my couples have already brought me. For the most part, I do try to stick with just the things that the bride has, so that way it's her things and the things that she's curated for her day, so that everything is cohesive. But it is nice to have a couple of extra things just in case we need some ribbon or a spool or something fun that they didn't necessarily buy themselves. So I have different colors of like cheesecloth linen that is based on the colors that my brides have for their weddings throughout this year. Some velvet and really thick ribbon that's really pretty. Also have some stamps that are really fun. And I got all of these items on different Etsy shops and Amazon after asking my brides what colors they were going to be using on their wedding days to make sure that everything matches. And then to carry all of this stuff around, I have 3 different camera bags that I use on a wedding day. This is my Kelly Moore Libby 2.0 bag. It looks a little rough, mainly because it's my main camera bag that I use for all of my sessions. It stays with me throughout the entire wedding day. It's got a ton of pockets. I love how durable it is and that it's able to carry all of the things that I need at one specific moment. Then I did just get the Kelly Moore Weekender bag, which I am obsessed with. I love it so much. This is my everyday bag that I use to carry my laptop. I have a 15-inch MacBook, so it was kind of hard to find a bag that would be able to hold it. So on a wedding day, I use it to bring my laptop and then also store extra cameras or extra lenses that I'm not necessarily using at the moment. Since this bag stays inside, it just is kind of like the catch-all, but it smells like leather and I love it so much. Then I have this Lower Pro backpack. It's super durable on the outside. It's kind of hard, and even though it's not super cute and kind of looks like a Ninja Turtle backpack when you're wearing it, I also know that everything inside of it is going to be completely safe. I normally keep my flashes in here and then any extra backup cameras that we need for the day of, especially since I know that I only need those for the reception, and so normally by the time I get there, I'm throwing everything around, and so I just want everything kept in a really safe place that I can slide underneath the table or leave in another room. Okay, so I know that that was a somewhat quick but also somewhat long explanation of everything that I use to shoot a wedding day. Like I said, I know it can be a little overwhelming as you are first starting out shooting your first weddings, trying to figure out what equipment you need and making sure that you're fully prepared. But I do highly recommend investing in 1 to 2 pieces of equipment at a time, so that way you can truly learn it and know it back and forth, and then for everything else you can just rent it. I personally used lensrentals.com because I think that they're the best. They are always calling me if they think that I've forgotten something or if they think that I need something else extra to really make my experience perfect. It always arrives super quick and on time and comes with everything that I need to box it right back up and send it back. They do also have an option that you can keep the equipment and buy it from them if you decide that you use it and you love it. And it comes at a little bit of a cheaper cost than if you were going to get it brand new, and I have done that for a few of my different lenses. If you do want to try them out and try out different pieces of equipment that you've seen here, I do have a $25 off code to Lens Rentals, and I will link the code below. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me, and if you have any other questions about the equipment or how I use it or my thoughts on it, then please feel free to reach out. I'm an open book. I would love to share with you guys. And if you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up and I will start creating some more similar content. Other than that, I will see you guys next week. All right, bye guys.